what advice would you give to people if, like, for example, now someone's in a degree? Because I know it's also difficult. I find it difficult navigating research specifically, because that's not something we're sort of taught, or that's not something we have much experience in medical school. So how would you go about trying to obtain a publication first and foremost?
Okay.
But also dealing with, like, you know, like supervisors, professors, like how would you approach them with regards to research? What would you do?
Okay, so I feel like this whole realm of medicine just requires an entirely different skill set and an entirely different approach. You can't use that same like tunnel mentality that you have going in to do this. You kind of have to innovate a little bit, be smart, be tactical, and just find a way. And the best way I would say to tap into publications and research generally, if you're interested, is to go down the intercalation route. Now, the reason I say that is because you're specifically allocated projects, and many of these projects have potential for publication. But before even delving into this a bit more, I would say that you really need to look into your reason for wanting to publish. Because after having published a few times now, first author, it's a very, very arduous process. It is very, very tough. And when push comes to shove, if you didn't really have strong motivations for wanting to do it, you're going to fall off. You're not going to manage to push it to publication. But just back to the what we're speaking about. So with the intercalation, I feel like as a student, the world is your oyster. If you show you're keen and you're really willing to put some work in, these professors and these academics and these pioneers in the field, like you mentioned, are open to help you. Like, they will. So you just make your intention known very early on. So before you start these projects, you ask them, is there publication potential? Am I able to push this for publication when we're done? And obviously you want to pick selectively with that. Navigating the research itself and your seniors, I'd say that it's quite tough, I'll be honest. It was a very, very steep learning curve. Like, you just feel like you're in the dark again. Like, when I started med school, it was the same thing. I just did not know how to navigate all these lectures and all this studying. And it was the same thing with the research. It's just you're learning from scratch. And there isn't much guidance out there, I'll be honest. But the only way you do it is by actually putting it into practice and doing it. Take advantage of every SSC you get in med school, every essay you write. Take the feedback into account. And when you do start your first project, really try and take your senior as a mentor figure. Often they can be quite critical of you, but I wouldn't take it negatively. You need to understand that these people, they've published before and they know how meticulous that journals are when accepting publications. So it's literally a process of just trial and error and just iterating each time. So you write a paper, you get this feedback, he's told you this is bad, this needs rewriting. Take it into account, learn and do it again. Just keep doing it. Don't be put off by the process. And eventually, if you're committed to it, things do start to get easier and click in the research side of things. Like, when I had read enough papers, I knew enough about this topic now to almost just write from scratch from my head. So it does become rewarding after a while, I would say. But if you're not intercalating, you're not planning to intercalate, but you still want to get into research, that is very possible as well. Like I mentioned earlier, you're a student, people are open to you as long as you're keen and you're willing to work hard. So what I would say is identify the avenue of research you want to go down. What exactly do you want to research? Like, what are you interested in? Is it neurosurgery? Is it cardiology? Is it orthopedics? And after you do that, you want to identify useful contacts within them fields, people who are actively researching in that field. Now, ideally, just look at the hospital you're attached to or your university, and you want to find the contacts on the website and essentially just ping them over an email, introduce yourself, be polite, tell them who you are, and tell them, obviously look into their research. Let them know that you're interested in research and you really want to build yourself up from zero. You've not got much experience at the moment, but you're willing to work very hard and you want to. And this is how it goes. You get one in and it goes from there.
I think that's a few interesting points which you mentioned. Obviously, the first point is that the individual you're working with, the senior professor and things like that, has significant experience. So I think that's also the first thing to look for, is that does the person I'm working with have significant experience or does he not, or does he or she not? Then the other factor which is to consider is that have that dedicated focus when you communicate with them, is that I'm gearing towards publication. Will this be published? Which journals are we publishing it? Make your intentions known right from the start. Make it clear that this is what I want. This is what I want to achieve. I want to achieve some form of research which is going to have a beneficial impact within the wider community, whether it's the surgical or the medical community, something that's actually going to be beneficial. A lot of the times you may find research that doesn't actually have any end product, any end relation to the functional practice of everyday life, really. And then the other aspect is because, to be honest, if you don't make your intentions known, you can actually end up doing, obviously I'm not gonna miss my words here, but essentially called dog work, which is commonly known as that a lot of extensive manual labor without significant outcome. So you're essentially doing someone else's dirty work, essentially. And this is a trap which many juniors or mid students may actually fall into. You kind of need to vet the projects, speak to someone who's more experienced in the field as well, someone that you trust as well. And that can actually happen, as well.
Yeah.
So that's something just to be wary about as well. You don't take every opportunity, like, you have to think about it a bit carefully as well.
Definitely, I think like you mentioned as well, not just publishing for the sake of publishing, like actually look at your reasons, right? Do something that you can contribute to the field. And if you genuinely see yourself operating in this area in the future, it is very, very useful to dive deep into research and get involved.